Good evening, everyone. We're going to call to order the Thursday, October 24th meeting of the Capitola City Council. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Morgan.
Here.
Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Brooks.
Here.
And Mayor Brown.
Here. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening? All right, thank you. We are going to go now to our presentations. We'll start with our presentation on the Mayor for a Day Youth Essay Contest.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. It is with great pleasure that I get to introduce you to Isabella, who is the elementary division winner for the Mayor for a Day essay contest, who is here to come and be her mayor for the day and read her essay for you.
Wonderful. Congratulations. Come on up. Want to bang the gavel, feel free. You are now the mayor. Yay. I'm excited to hear your essay.
Hello, my name is Isabella, and I will be telling you 4 ideas for laws I would make if I were mayor for a day. If I were mayor for a day, I would first make speed bumps at every stop sign. I would do this because sometimes people forget to stop and might crash into another car. Also because teenagers might crash when taking a driver's test. They might not stop in time or just maybe not see the sign. If I were mayor for a day, I would secondly make school start at 8:45 so kids can get more sleep. And so that we don't miss school, for 3rd grade and below, school ends at 3 o'clock, and for 4th and 5th grade, it would end at 3:30. This way students can get more sleep. Because school would start at 8:45 and many parents start the job at 8 o'clock, there could be a before school program. It would start at 7:50 and end at 8:30. For the 3rd law, I would also make guns that aren't for safety or police officers illegal. For the 4th law, I think we should make schools safer by adding gates. Someone should be at the gate to let them in if they're a parent or student. Last but not least, I think we should stop raising prices when somebody does theft. So that way the prices are fair for everybody. There, now you know, that's what I would do if I were mayor. Thank you for letting me share my ideas with all of you.
Congratulations. Please do. If anyone wants to come up and take photos, you're welcome to as well of our mayor and her seat. We need you. You know, Yvette.
Can my dad come up?
Yeah.
My phone though. I can take it on. Julia's got it.
Dad, you can come up and join the picture if you want. Okay. Here, Isabella, do you want to hold up? We have a certificate for you. Do you want to hold it up for the picture?
Sure.
And the gavel. Here, hold up your certificate, and you can hold up the gavel, and we've got some pins for you, all kinds of stuff when you're mayor. Yeah. Great job.
Did I get to take this?
Yeah, that's all yours. Okay. And here, we got some pins for you, too. I can't wait to vote for you when you're mayor.
Okay.
No? Maybe just for today? All right. Great job, Madam Mayor. We are going now, what do I do with my pen? I'll find it later. Thank you. We are going, oh, okay, thank you. We are going now to item 3B, presentation of the public art tile project at Park Avenue and Washburn Avenue.
Well,
Hi.
good evening. Hi. I am so thrilled to be here tonight, and Mayor, council members, and honored guests. I am thrilled to act as a representative of the Soquel Union Elementary School District. That's the first reason I'm honored to be here, but for the second reason, I have a very deep root in the city of Capitola. My parents bought their first house in 1972, 2 blocks from this exact location. So really excited to be back. And if they would have known then that I'd be here today, they would be very excited. So tonight, I am going to provide you a little bit of an update about the beginning of a partner project that started just 1 year ago. And we'll end with me sharing, and I think you might already have a QR code to a video that was made that has some of our staff members and students represented. So hopefully you'll be able to take a look at that later tonight. So just some background. This original idea came from a teacher in our school district, Ann Wilson, who is here tonight. Give everybody a little wave. And you'll also see her highlighted in the video that you'll see later. And she had an idea that would really solve 2 issues. One, our students in the Soquel Union Elementary School District would get to participate in a community event. And we would also get to tackle a city issue, and that's anti-graffiti. So she really, as in driving by a specific area on Park and Washburn, she said, I think this idea is one that I don't want to just keep with myself. I want to take it to some other people to think about. And so she took it to the superintendent, Scott Turnbull, who's here also tonight, and myself, and we thought it was a great idea. And from that moment, this story began. Scott got together with other council members and talked about the prospects, and we wrote a proposal in August of 2023, which was shared with the council, including some of what we thought would be the specifications of the project at that time, and we were on our way. So next slide, please. So these were the specifications at the time. The original specifications are on the right-hand side. So it was really to think about creating a mural on that wall on Washburn and Park and to use tiles to create the mural. And we really had to think about, like, how are we going to fund this? How are we going to get students to want to do it? How are we going to get staff involved? And what are the things that we're going to need to be able to do that? So these are some things that we talked about in the original specifications. And of course, that changed over time. We found out that we had some access to some grant funds that could help us do this. We had some staff that were interested. And we brought in some partners to really think through the project with us. Next slide, please. So myself and Nikki Brent, your very own partner here, and one of our former teachers in our district got together and said, gosh, what a great idea. Let's make some sketches. Let's think about what this could possibly look at. So we sketched out the dimensions and the space and some possible appearances of the project. And then Nikki helped connect us to the Art Commission, and we met with the Art Commission a number of times and talked about ideas, shared ideas about what might be included in the picture orientation of the murals. Next slide. And from there, we had this digital rendering. So this was kind of the initial plan. When it's all said and done, this is what it might look like. When you see the slide at the end, you'll notice it looks pretty much like this. So what our original conceived ideas were at the time came to fruition, but it was really great to be able to work with our city partners and the Arts Commission, or the Arts Commission, and our staff to really think very clearly about kind of how to be inclusive and how to really highlight our students' talents, at the same time organizing it in a beautiful way. Next slide. So these were the originally kind of proposed themes that we had. We wanted maybe to think about, well, what do our students do in the community? What do we love about the community? What are some scenes in the community that the students connect with and that their families connect with? And between the Arts Commission and our staff and our students, we developed an idea for 4 basic city representations that you'll see now on the wall. What our idea was and having it come out in actuality was super complex. So you have this big picture of what you want it to look like, and you have to divide it into 6 by 6 sections and ask students and staff to recreate that big picture into these little tiny sections. So you'll see on the slide ahead of you, the one slide back. On the slide in front of you, you'll see a representation of the Venetian, and then how we had to divide that into quadrants and have students assigned to different quadrants of that overall mural, do their sketches, lay them out and make sure that they made sense, and then keep going and going and going. So the installation we had hoped would be in the summer of 2024, and nobody thought it was going to happen. And it happened at the end of summer 2024 into the fall of 2024. We again, got together and said, let's make sure that all of these tiles come together and they look like really strong murals. Let's orient them in a big space. We used the art room at New Brighton Middle School. And we met with Jessica, who works here with the city, Nikki, and Matt, and talked about once it's installed, how do we make it look like a uniform piece of art? And so there is some lettering that goes above the installation and some descriptions about the project that we created afterwards to help the community understand what the project was intended to do and who did it. And next slide. So these are some of the people who did it. I love to see these faces because they're faces that I'm so familiar with, but city students and staff. So we've got the person that's wide-eyed and with a big smile. She birthed the idea. She's right here. And that is another colleague of hers at Main Street. You'll see some students working. The project expediter that has her head turned against us, she's a little shy. You'll see her on another slide, but she was really the glue that held this project together. She was the one who worked all summer to make sure that every one of those slides or every one of those tiles was complete, and every one of those squares was kind of personified in that overall mural. You'll see students working. Our technology coordinator jumped in. You have some more students. Our superintendent right there. Excellent painter, by the way. And then some students and families. Our youngest student that was involved is not even a student in our district yet. 2 years old was the youngest child that was working on the project. I don't know how old the oldest one is, but we don't have to talk about that. But we had a variety of ages up through grandparents. So it was really a wonderful community engagement opportunity for us as much as it was a partnership opportunity with the city. And these were the staff that were involved, and including mostly teachers. So everyone listed here was a person who worked directly with students on the project. The students were working before school, after school, and during the summer to complete the project. So we want to make sure that we acknowledge all of those tile teachers, makers, and bakers, because it went from sketches to firing. So we're really happy to highlight them tonight. And the last slide. This is how it turned out. It's like kind of one step before it is now. And if you do want to take a look at the video, it's linked into this specific photo, but it's also on the QR code on the little postcard that I had passed out earlier. Any questions about the project?
This is wonderful. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no questions, but I just wanted to say how thankful I am for all of the hard work that you all put into this. And it's just a really amazing piece of artwork in Capitola. I love driving by it every day and checking it out. So if there are any more blank walls you find, please come back to us.
Well, thank you very much. We're in semi-retirement at the moment. It did take a lot of time, a time that we loved spending, but we're so thankful that you enjoy it and that the community enjoys it, because we love seeing it too.
You know, when I was in elementary school, a local artist came to our school and asked us to participate in a mural for our community, and it's still up to this day. And I drive by it when I go back home, and I get to see it and know that I'm a part of the community in that way. And so I just feel like our community is so lucky, but most importantly, our students, our youth here, who get to see that and grow with it, and just be a staple in beautiful Capitola. So thank you so much, and thanks to the district and the teachers and all the people who helped put this together.
Yeah, thank you. What a huge collaboration. And I have not seen the finished product yet, so with my own eyes, so I'm ready to go check it out, hopefully tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Echoing everything out there, it's a great project. I was glad to be a part of it, and drove by a couple of times. It's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you again. It's exciting to see. I've seen some of the students out there pointing out to each other, this was my tile, and showing their family, and it's just really exciting. Thank you so much for everyone that worked on this project and made this happen.
Thank you, and thank you for your partnership. We look forward to lots more of it.
Absolutely. All right, we are going to move on now to a presentation from Central Coast Community Energy.
They're presenting
Well,
via Zoom.
hello, everyone. What a hard act to follow, both of those presentations. Very impressive. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members, City of Capitola staff, and community. My name is Judy Young, and I am the Senior Customer Account Manager with Central Coast Community Energy. And I thank you for the opportunity to present our annual update tonight. So I'm quickly going to go over who 3CE is, because not everyone knows. We are a new government agency. We were formed about 6 years ago when all of these cities and counties came together and said, what if we could purchase the electricity to serve our region? Could we do it better? As a local public agency, could we be competitive in price, make greater progress on renewables, and provide investment back into our communities? And I'm here tonight to show you how we're doing and what benefits are being offered right here in Capitola. As our agency has grown, our investment in our communities has increased. Our budget for community energy programs in fiscal year 23-24 that just concluded is $16.8 million, which is money that is available to help the city and your constituents to help reduce emissions by electrifying vehicles and buildings. And to date, on behalf of all of the cities and counties that we serve, we have invested $4.5 billion in new renewable energy and energy storage projects, which are making the grid cleaner and helping the environment by reducing fossil fuel emissions. Some of those projects include new technologies that are pushing the envelope toward 100% clean and renewable power, like a compressed air energy storage project, which will be the largest in the world of its kind. And in the photo here, a geothermal project in Mammoth Lakes, the first new geothermal project to serve the state in 30 years. We have power purchase agreements in negotiation or in place to cover 80% of our annual load with renewable energy. The challenges in bringing these projects online in a timely manner due to the current backlog in California around permitting and grid connection and delays in transmission upgrades. And yet so much progress is being made. If you haven't heard, the amount of renewable energy on the grid has been exceeding customer demand in California on nearly a daily basis this past spring for as many as 9 hours a day. In fact, for 100 consecutive days this year, and for at least part of the day, the state ran on 100% renewable carbon-free electricity. This is a huge accomplishment. And agencies like 3CE, along with our municipal partners like the City of Capitola, are very much a part of the reason why. So not only are the renewable projects we've contracted with contributing to the solution, but they are also achieving cost savings for our customers. And because of a decision made by our policy board last year, these projects are being evaluated based on their commitment to local community engagement, environmental protection, and workforce support. In addition to providing clean power, I talked about providing direct investment. So here's a summary of the residential, commercial, and ag rebates available to our customers, including the ever popular Electrify Your Ride, which provides rebates for new and used electric vehicles, chargers, and electrical panel upgrades. And I also have a new program to tell you about tonight, our residential battery rebate program, which when stacked with other incentives covers 60 to 100% of the purchase and installation cost for a home battery, depending on customer income level. So to date, 3CE has invested nearly $700,000 in the city and community of Capitola through our energy programs. And I really want to emphasize the offers we have specifically for the city itself. As you know, California has strict mandates for electrifying fleets. This is a major undertaking for local governments, and we are here to help you every step of the way. Through our member agency programs, we offer a full suite of rebates and consulting services designed to guide you through the transition. We have funding to help you develop a comprehensive plan, from determining how many EVs you need to purchase and when, to identifying the best locations for charging infrastructure. And when your plan is ready, 3CE also provides funding for both the vehicles and the charging infrastructure to bring it all to life. And I'm so pleased that Capitola staff is taking advantage of these programs. We also offer funding to help cities adopt REACH codes, which go beyond state requirements to drive lower emissions in buildings. And finally, I host a quarterly call for the staff of local governments that make up 3CE, where I go over all of these opportunities. And if any of you would like to learn more about what we're doing, I'm happy to set up a meeting. So the last thing I will add tonight is the applications for all of these programs are on our website. And this is for the public listening as well. For the community programs, just go to 3ce.org or send an email to info@3ce.org for more information on purchasing electric vehicles, heat pump water heaters, and HVAC systems. So I hope tonight I've given you a good picture of what our agency is doing to help bring clean energy and community investment to the city of Capitola. And in closing, on behalf of everyone at 3CE, we thank you for the opportunity to be your local electricity generation provider, to support you, and to be your partner. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Comments?
I don't have any questions. I'd just like to thank our partners at C3E for their dedication to promoting renewable energy in our community. That's really important, and it's really inspiring to see all of the work that you're doing in that area. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, there you are, Judith. I saw you for a second on
I'm
the
here.
screen. Oh, there she is. Hi, Judith. It's been an honor to serve on the policy board, so I'm really familiar with our programs. One of the things we hear in our community, and I don't know if you're prepared to answer this or where we can get access to this, but some of the things we often hear about is, how is this different from, why is this information on PG&E's bill? You just shared we had an overload of energy on the grid, but sometimes our community experiences rolling blackouts, and how is that different? And Judith, this is probably a hard question to answer, or it might take up a longer conversation, but I'm wondering if you can briefly just touch on the difference between that.
Sure, I'd love to. So there's actually 3 components that go into making your light switch work. The first component, and I hope I'm answering the question that you asked. The first component is generating the electricity in the first place. And then the second component is moving that electricity from where it is generated to a central hub location and then distributing it. So that's called transmission, distributing it from that central hub location to your house meter or your commercial meter. So those three components are called generation, transmission, and delivery. And we handle the generation piece. So we're responsible for helping to build new renewable energy projects like solar and wind to help meet the demand of all of our customers. PG&E is still responsible for transmitting the power on the grid and distributing it or delivering it to your meter. They also handle billing for us. So you will see, and all of your constituents will see a bill from PG&E that breaks out a line item that says 3CE. That line item for generation is not an additional charge. It replaces the generation charge that would have been included in the PG&E charges if they weren't with 3CE. And we have historically, our generation charges have been lower than PG&E's. So that's where the cost advantage comes from. Did that answer the question?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? No? All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here to share that with us this evening.
Oh, thank you so much. Have a nice night.
You too. Okay, we're going to go now to item 4, a report out on closed session.
The council took no reportable action today.
Thank you. Any additional materials for tonight's meeting?
Staff received 4 emails relating to item 9A after publication of the agenda packet and 1 email for item 9B. All materials were distributed to the City Council and made available for public review prior to tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Before we move on to oral communications, I understand that the city manager has an announcement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I do want to take a moment, a little bit out of order this evening to make a special announcement. I would like to announce to the community and our police department that Captain Sarah Ryan will be the next police chief of the city of Capitola, effective November 24th of this year.
Congratulations. Would you like to say a few words, or is there anyone that would like to say a few words at this time?
First of all, I just want to say thank you. This has been quite a journey, and thank you to Chief Daly for the partnership for the last 2 decades, and especially the last 3 years working together. And the police department, your support. You'll be back there. I'm going to save a lot of my comments for December 4th when I get sworn in, because like any chief, I just like to talk. So, and to my family, because professional growth means that you have to put things aside in your personal life. And as a public servant, you put community first. And so that means that somewhere something's got to give. And it usually comes from my family who's here. So thank you. And for those of you that sat on the panel, you made me perfectly uncomfortable. And for community members that like to make me perfectly uncomfortable, Karin, I appreciate you. You've been a part of my growth. And I look forward to the rest of, what else we can do together. So thank you, Jamie, for the opportunity. Appreciate it. It's been a good 15 years, and I hope to continue moving forward in a positive direction.
Thank you. Don't go away yet. Don't go away yet, Sarah.
Yes, ma'am. Is it? Okay, so here we go. Thank you, I appreciate it.
We welcome any additional comments if there's anyone else in the room that would like to comment. Hi, welcome.
Hi, welcome, Mayor and council members. I'm Jacob Ainsworth. I'm the Chief Deputy of Operations for the Sheriff's Office. Chris Clark would be here tonight, our undersheriff. Unfortunately, he had a prior commitment, so he was unable to make it. I'm going to say some things about Sarah because I've known her for 25 plus years, both personally and professionally. And I wanted to take a moment tonight to kind of showcase some of her strengths that a lot of people don't know in this community that I've gotten the opportunity to be able to both work next to and experience for the last 20 plus years. Sarah comes with an extensive law enforcement experience that I think is going to really help her through this process and the community policing aspect that's required in the city of Capitola. She has strong leadership skills. She has embraced community engagement, as we all know. She has a true commitment to community policing, building successful relationships with the community, the businesses, and other community partners. She's innovative with problems and embraces problem solving. She has a commitment to inclusion. I can't stress enough her dedication to promoting community relationships that ensure that community members feel embraced and heard. Most importantly, she embraces transparency and accountability. And I can't say that about everybody in my profession, unfortunately, but Sarah is one that I can say that exists with. And I think that's important in the city of Capitola. Her strong belief with transparency and policing practices ensures accountability within this organization and within the department, and there's building, and that also builds trust within the community, which is really important. She has a strong vision for the future, but most importantly, she has a deep passion for public safety. Sarah has an unwavering dedication to serving the community and her desire to make Capitola a safe place. And so I'm really excited for her. So thank you very much for letting me talk.
Thank you. All right, anyone else like to say a few words about our now future Chief Ryan? Okay. All right, congratulations. Okay, we are going to go now to item 6, which is oral communications by members of the public. So any member of the public that would like to address the council on any items that are not on tonight's agenda, now would be the time.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Goran Klabic. I play almost every day basketball at Jade Street Park. I want to remind sometimes people that Jade Street Park has also kids who play there. And that sometimes when I report that there is some marijuana smoking or sale going on, I'm not being taken seriously. I also found sometimes in the men's restroom heroin and cocaine. Heroin is, I don't know, heroin is in my European language. That's fentanyl, I think, or something. It's a yellowish, the substance. So I just want to warn you about that. Things like that happen in Capitola. And I also think it's a little bit of a shame that a veteran who served in, I think he served in Ecuador or something, is begging people for money right by McDonald's parking lot there. I give him sometimes some change when I have change after I consume my Diet Coke beverage. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Additional public comment this evening? Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Transparency and accountability. And I think of truth as being integral to that. So I was glad to hear your comments just now about what we just heard. So I have a trifold here, myths and truths about COVID-19. And I know people were coerced to getting shots without knowing some of the facts, not disclosed, but here are some of them. and it's not funny. Myths and truths about COVID-19, contagious virus, or 5G microwave technology. This is a trifold from Weston A. Price Foundation, westonaprice.org. COVID-19 and the 5G connection. We hear about 5G all the time. Many epidemiological observations and biological studies indicate that the disease called COVID-19 is actually radiation poisoning caused by exposure to microwaves used in 5G wireless technology. Epidemiology. COVID-19 first appeared in Wuhan, China, when the city turned on 10,000 5G base stations. It spread to Spain and Italy as these nations deployed 5G technology. The country with the highest rate of COVID-19 illness and death is San Marino, which has had 5G longer than any other European nation. COVID then appeared in other European countries, in New York and major American cities and smaller cities and rural areas, with 5G now coming from satellites and less industrialized countries around the world, exactly following the rollout of 5G in these locations. Biology, COVID-19 and radiation injury. The symptoms are the same. Fever, chills, and these are just some symptoms. Dry coughing, extensive fatigue, loss of taste and smell, reddening of the extremities, acute respiratory distress syndrome, multi-organ hypercoagulation, hypoxia, lack of oxygen, cardiovascular damage. How to protect yourself, if you can, minimize exposure to 5G. Something to look into, very serious. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay, seeing none.
So I know I didn't have any changes for the agenda, but it looks like I do have a proposed reorganization once you get through the consent calendar. I think our artist is a little bit late, so we were thinking maybe we can do the zoning code items as our first item before, or we can do that after consent.
Okay. You want to change? You want to rearrange general?
Yeah,
You want to do it after consent? Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, we'll come back to that when we get there. Cool. Okay. In that case, we will move on now to any further staff comments this evening.
I have
guess that was one of them.
a comment for staff.
A comment for the staff?
For the staff.
Okay. Council comments. Let's do it.
I'm part of the Art and Cultural Commission, and if you haven't noticed, all over town since the beginning of the week, there's been artists all over painting some absolutely great paintings. The artists come from all over Western United States. They're here for a whole week. You can meet these artists 10 to 2 on Friday in Esplanade. And on Sunday, they'll be selling their artwork between 11 and 4 at New Brighton Middle School inside the Public Arts Building. This gets us right next to the gym. That's 250 Washburn Avenue. Again, just coming here tonight, I saw a young lady painting on the trestle of our little Riverview area, and it was beautiful. So come down Friday. If you can't come Friday, definitely try to make it Sunday. The artwork is for sale. It's a great program. We've been doing it for a few years. It's something for everybody to see. Roy, am I missing anything? Everything good? That's the commissioner back there. But yeah, great work. Can't wait to see it. Thanks.
Thank you. Comments?
Yeah, I had a comment. A couple meetings ago, we had a presentation on daylighting for inside our village and areas that we were going to open up for pedestrian safety. And a lot of those measures have already started to be taken. And I just kind of noticed the village seems a little bit more open. It seems a little bit more people friendly. And huge shout out to Public Works. I know there's always things coming at you. So thank you for doing that swiftly, and hopefully it can help us. You know, after our mayor for the day, she spoke a lot about safety, so I'm happy we're moving in the direction that she would like us to be in. Thank you.
At the last council meeting, I let my colleagues know that I was going to be attending, but now I have the Long Beach League of Cities convention that I attended. And one of the outcomes of the conference was that we needed to select new executive committee members for the Monterey Bay region. And the Monterey region representatives chose me as the new president for the area. And so my role will be to support our council and ensure that our voice is heard at the state level along with the rest of the region in regards to all the issues that we talk about so often. So I will be attending January, they're every few months meetings, but I just want to let you all know. So thank you.
Congratulations. We are well represented. I will just share a couple things. This Sunday is our Halloween parade. The lineup is at 1:30 at the lower parking lot, correct? And the parade will start at 2. I will be there. I haven't gotten a costume yet, so we will all find out what my costume will be when we get there. Please join us. It's going to be exciting. Behind the police department. I also want to share, I had an opportunity to be part of a career day at a school within the district this week. And we've got some really bright students. The second graders this time had great ideas for beach cleanups and cheaper houses and food for everyone. Also discussions about more arcades in the village. So if we could get on that. I was not prepared for these second graders to ask me my position on some of the state propositions, but they did. I was not prepared for that. So we definitely have some rising political leaders in our school district. So I just want to thank the school for welcoming me at that event, and for Your Future is Our Business, which is our executive directors, our vice mayor, for helping me to have that opportunity to speak with some second grade students who are clearly going to be leaders in their community. Okay, we're going to move on now to we're going to move some stuff around. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we're on consent. I got sidetracked. All right. So we're going to move on to consent then. All items on consent will be enacted in one motion as listed on the agenda unless any of the council members want to remove an item for separate discussion. Okay, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
I can move consent items 8A through D.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we will go to rearrange our agenda. What's going on? We want to move zoning code updates to the first item?
So staff would propose moving the zoning code update, which is item 9B, up as our first general government item this evening.
Okay, so we will take the order as 9B, 9A, and then 9C. Sounds good. Okay, with that, we will go to item 9B, which is our 2024 zoning code updates first reading.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm excited to be here before you tonight with Ben Noble of Ben Noble Planning. And Ben has worked with the city on zoning code updates for many years and continues to assist us with creating a user-friendly code that our public appreciates and also keeps us in compliance with state law along with our city attorney's office. So with that, I'll jump in. Next slide, please. A little background here. Tonight, we're here to implement many of the commitments we made within our housing element update, and most of which are due the end of this year. The Planning Commission has been really busy this year. We've had 9 meetings on this subject matter. We've had many special meetings. I know we have one commissioner in the audience, Commissioner Wilk, and I just personally want to thank the Planning Commission for their dedication to this item. We've been working hard at this for 8 months. Planning Commission made a positive recommendation for adoption both on September 19th for a portion of the amendments you're seeing tonight, and then again on October 3rd for the density bonus regulations, which is a separate chapter. And during that last meeting, they were also considering changes to our design review process, which they decided not to move forward with this time. So our design review process will stay as is in the proposed, it was their recommendation to keep it as it is today within our code. So within your packet, it was very long because of all of the materials we provided. First, there were the zoning code text amendments, so the actual code with the red lines. And then also the map amendments were also shown as part of that draft ordinance. Next slide, please. The second item for the attachments was a summary table, and that really went through exactly what the topic is, what the direction was from the Planning Commission, and where it was implemented within the code. So I think that's kind of our cheat sheet of what we're adopting this evening. And the majority of the items are around the housing element. However, there were some cleanup items and then some economic development items that we wanted to put into this draft. We are not bringing forward changes to our multifamily residential. We did extensive noticing this year to talk about changes to the density. We had a lot of public outreach. That item is not due within our housing element until the end of 2025. So we said, let's put this on pause. We really need to do some, like a community workshop, educate everyone on why we're doing this and what the effects will be. And so we said, let's slow that down. And then also with all the changes that went into our housing element at the last minute for the Capitola Mall site, we asked HCD if we could make those, we extended the deadline to the end of 2025. So we'll also be working on that next year. So with that, I'm going to hand over the presentation to Ben Noble, and I'll do a couple of the slides at the very end. So Ben?
There we go. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. Happy to be here again. My name is Ben Noble. I'm the consultant assisting with the zoning code amendments. And as Katie mentioned, the proposed amendments tonight include both changes to the zoning map and to the zoning text. The zoning map amendments are limited to removing the affordable housing overlay zone, circled in red on the screen. Next slide, please. And because of changes in state density bonus law, that overlay zone has become obsolete, and the housing element identifies a program to remove it. That is the change to the zoning map. Next slide, please. And so, as discussed in the staff report, the zoning code text amendments include a lot of different amendments to the zoning code as called for in the housing element and for other cleanup and economic development purposes. I'm going to briefly review some highlights, some topics of interest within those amendments. Next slide, please. So in order to promote housing construction within single-family neighborhoods and to accommodate greater diversity of housing choices, the zoning code amendments include changes to allowed uses in the single-family residential zone to allow duplex homes on corner parcels within the R1 zone. Next slide, please. And so in order to facilitate development of housing on identified opportunity sites, the zoning code amendments include provisions to incentivize lot consolidation. So if there's a development project proposed on a housing element opportunity site where there are two separate parcels next to one another, and if those two or more parcels are merged, that project is eligible for increased height in the FAR as an incentive to develop multiple parcels as part of a single project. Next slide, please. So in order to remove barriers to housing production, particularly multifamily housing, the zoning code amendments reduce required on-site parking for multifamily development where the required parking is connected to the size of the unit. Next slide, please. And to comply with recent changes in state law, required parking for single-family homes are simplified so that there is 2 parking spaces required per unit regardless of the number or regardless of the size of the single-family home. Next slide, please. So in order to comply with recent changes in state law, the zoning code amendments include provisions related to housing production on religious institution sites. And this would apply to two existing religious institution sites within Capitola, the Shore Life Community Church and the St. Joseph's Catholic Church. And what this amendment does is clarifies the procedure that would apply and the rules that would apply if an affordable housing project were proposed on those sites consistent with state law. This is a state law that requires all cities in California to allow housing production on religious institution sites. This amendment simply clarifies what those rules are in Capitola consistent with state law. Next slide, please. So in order to meet the needs of families in Capitola, the amendments include changes to the permit requirements for daycare centers in commercial zones with a more streamlined, simplified permit process for those uses within existing commercial areas. Next slide, please. And then also to comply with recent changes to state density bonus law, as well as to facilitate affordable housing production in Capitola, we've replaced the existing outdated density bonus chapter within the municipal code with a new chapter that's consistent with state law and will be more nimble over time as state law continues to change. And then with that, I'll hand it back to Katie.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So a couple more changes that took place. There were definitely cleanup within our code. As you saw, we removed a lot of barriers to housing, so it's really exciting with where we're headed in this new direction. And also, we made a couple changes to our commercial, regional commercial. One is retail cannabis establishments previously were only allowed in regional commercial. We're extending that south on 41st Avenue into the community commercial zones. That's that light pink area shown on the map south of Capitola Road. And so that also required a slight cleanup to chapter 9.61 because we had to clean up a reference. And then office space. So when we updated our code between 2013 to 2018, when there was a real concern about too much office space along 41st Avenue and losing retail. And then through the changes with the pandemic and changes to retail in general, we have heard from different businesses the need to keep existing office in place and have greater allowance that if we're really prohibiting ground floor office space in the regional commercial. So we've created a new pathway for businesses. If it has been office in the past, it can continue to be an office in the future. And also creating a permitting system so that projects can go before the Planning Commission should they apply for a CUP. And then setting some new standards for areas that there are some buildings in town that were really set up for office and they don't have a main entryway facing 41st Avenue or Claire's. They've got parking in the back. It's really, and then there's also buildings that are not right along the frontage of 41st Avenue or Claire's that are set back within the regional commercial, one in particular on 40th Avenue. So we made new standards there that those can remain office buildings in the future if they really were not set up to be retail sites. So with that, it'll allow a little more flexibility for existing offices to move back into buildings that were set up for office space. Next slide, please. So in order for the changes to go into effect within our coastal zone, they have to be certified by the Coastal Commission. Within Attachment 3, we have an analysis of how it complies with our local coastal program. When we shared our revisions with the Coastal Commission, they did provide us a couple items of concern. So we went back and we updated our draft. So next slide, please. This has been posted on the website since before the packet went out. and just minor tweaks of references within our code. And this is something that the Coastal Commission asked us to do. They're not substantive changes, so they're not required to go back to the Planning Commission, but just cleaning up references. And next slide, please. The environmental review. So all these changes are required to have CEQA analysis and CEQA review. We're recommending an exemption that applies to, it's a common sense exemption to CEQA, to projects with potential for significant effect that do not, it's an exemption to having no impacts on the environment. So when we go through the changes to the Capitola Mall and multifamily, if there's changes to density, we'll most likely be going a little deeper into our CEQA analysis at that time. That's next year though, so next slide, please. We did receive public input today from the California Housing Defense Fund regarding our ADU ordinance. This came in today, around a little later in the day. We'd like to take some time and review that. At this time, from what we did review, we don't think there's any really large changes that need to occur in this packet that we're moving forward. So we are recommending that the same recommendation that we had in the staff report for adoption of a resolution this evening. And if we do find that additional changes are needed, we'll bring back a separate packet in the future for the Planning Commission and City Council to review. And so with that, I just want to say one other thing. Sean Sasanto has been the project manager on this project. He's done a fantastic job. He's out of office for a long weekend this weekend, and I just want to give him kudos because he's really put a lot of time and effort into this. Very detail-oriented and great coordination with Ben Noble. So with that, tonight we're recommending you to introduce for the first reading by title only, waiving further reading of the text, an ordinance amending Capitola Municipal Code Title 17, Zoning and Chapter 9.61, Marijuana Sales, Processing, and Cultivation, and to adopt a resolution authorizing submittal to the California Coastal Commission for certification of an amendment to the LCP. So with that, I'm available. We're both available for questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll start with questions. Any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. Thanks for all the work that you've done on this. It looks really great. In regards to an email I received, there's just a couple potential issues or points of clarification, rather. Micro units in the alternative housing types. These are based upon being a quarter-mile walking distance of a major transit. Is it possible to incentivize micro units more broadly as we don't have any current high-quality transit?
That's a possibility, and Ben, you can correct me on this, but I think we'd like to have that connection there because the parking requirement for a micro unit is so little that you really do need that component of transportation to assist with the micro units. And at this point, since we're not a high frequency transit, that's why we're waiting for that connection to have more frequent transit so that there's not an impact by allowing more micro units.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other topic was possibly related to the letter you received today. I see there could be some issues with the limit of 2 ADUs on multifamily units. Is that what the letter was about?
Yes, so within new state law that was proposed in September and recently adopted in November, and shortly after adopted, there's a proposal to allow detached ADUs with multifamily and up to 8 detached, and it's for existing multifamilies. That will go into effect in January. And so we're going to be looking, that's the one item that we're going to study and possibly move forward with a separate ordinance on that following these adoptions, the adoption of this. I do want to say many of these, I started off with this, but the items before you tonight. Many of them are due by the end of the year, so that's why we're strategizing to amend those separately if necessary.
That's not going to be an issue with HCD.
Correct. Yeah. We'll expedite it as fast as we can.
Awesome. Well, that was it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Just a couple questions. I'll start with the housing on religious institution sites. We're only identifying 2, but not all of the religious institution sites in Capitola.
So they're identified in our housing element as sites, but I believe this applies to if a different religious institution wanted to come forward, although it's not in our sites inventory and the housing element, I believe they could come forward with an
Was that
application.
oversight, or was that on purpose that we only picked 2 out of all?
I think it was on purpose just due to the size and the likelihood. Typically, you can't add sites to your housing element that would not likely be redeveloped. That's part of the HCD criteria.
Say that one more time.
So on those 2 sites, there's a high likelihood that they could develop there because they have such large parking lots. In other religious sites in Capitola, we didn't identify other ones such as the Calvary Church on Capitola Road because they really don't have space there for taking advantage of the allowance. I think it's for up to 50% of your parking area.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. And then for daycare centers, that's great. I think that's so awesome because there's a major need, and I've been an advocate of trying to get more in the area. I'm wondering if this change helps at all. I think we have one daycare center in the whole city. I'm just wondering, with this change, are there any benefits or things that we could be sort of supporting them in now that there's an opportunity for growth because they couldn't do it before? So I think that's just like something I want us to like continue the conversation on because I know that they were trying to grow, but they couldn't. And so just reaching out is my question, if we can offer outreach to that. And then to them. And then the last question is, I see the retail cannabis establishments were allowing both CR and CC, so more sites, but our code specifies that we're only allowing 2 in the city. I just want to make sure that the community hears that and hears you say that we're not opening a ton of cannabis retail stores.
The regulations, we did not increase the maximum number is 2. There can only be 2 retail cannabis establishments in Capitola. And we also, within the CC zone, we limited it to the 41st Avenue corridor. So it will not be allowed. Bay Avenue exit is also CC, but it would not be allowed there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a question about our density bonus. I don't see anything in there that talks about traffic studies or traffic issues.
So a density bonus application would have to, CEQA is applicable to a density bonus application, and traffic is a consideration that would be looked at within the CEQA analysis. So for example, we recently permitted 2 density bonus applications in Capitola, the Capitola Bluffs on Capitola Road, in which we hired a third party to do the traffic analysis on that. And the same goes for the 38th Avenue project. So 36 units on Capitola Road at the Bluffs, 52 units on 38th Avenue, and the analysis is tied to the CEQA review.
So it'll be reviewed before we go forward with any other projects as far as the traffic studies go?
Yeah, it's required at the time of Planning Commission review.
Yeah, I had a question on the religious sites. We may have been over this before, so forgive me, but are we looking at that as to provide only affordable housing, or would there be a mix?
I believe it's 100% affordable is the requirement by the state. So it would have to be 100%.
And like who's going to come and build on a...
That's a great question.
Okay.
But it could be the religious facility. I mean, they could partner with a Mid-Penn or an Eden.
Okay.
So it's
Got it. Okay, cool.
It's not limited to only certain people developing. It can be
okay.
a partnership.
Cool. Thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just have a quick question about how we decided the boundaries on the extension of the retail cannabis establishments. It makes sense to me, like where it's moving further down on 41st, because there's already retail establishments on that end, just on the other side of the city limits. But it looks like it kind of stops at the IHOP on one side of the street, that kind of complex. And then on the other side of the street, it goes down to where like Tracy's Nails is. You can tell what my priorities are, IHOP and Tracy's. But, so those two areas. But I'm just wondering why it didn't continue all the way to city limits.
It does, actually. So
Oh,
maybe
it
the map was deceiving, but it goes all the way down because it's the community commercial. And the feedback we were receiving from when we initially awarded the 2 retail cannabis, that it was really difficult to find an establishment because so many of these multi-tenant plazas have different regulations within them of what can be there, and oftentimes the leases will say no cannabis, retail cannabis within a certain area. So like the mall is applicable to that, Brown's Ranch. So as we were hearing those stories, we said we really need to expand this, and because of previous direction to stay along 41st Avenue and regional commercial, it seemed like the right idea to just move down 41st Avenue rather than introduce new areas of Capitola.
Yeah, that makes sense. I see it now. Yeah, it is the whole city limit. My apologies. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, we're going to go to public comment now. Thank you. If there's any member of the public that would like to make a comment on this item, now would be the time. Welcome.
I will make a comment only because Katie brought my name up. So I'm on the planning commission, and this was like drinking from a fire hose, trying to do this whole housing element, basically going through the entire code. So with that said, I'm sure there's a lot of details, a lot of exceptions, a lot of things that have slipped through the crack. But we did the best we could. And having said that, there is a lot of different opinions on the planning commission. We're very different people and with very different opinions. And so as we hammered through the items one by one, we got a lot of different opinions, and we ended up doing a lot of compromises. So I don't want you to think that this is very slanted towards one viewpoint or another. This is a very balanced approach in terms of reviewing this and coming to a conclusion and regulations and requirements that everybody could live with. So I recommend you approve this.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hi, welcome back.
I find it appalling. It sounds like cementing over Capitola for corporate development interests. This sounds like a very bad law from the state level, all in favor of the developers. I am shocked as I drive along Capitola Road that 44th Street bluffs. It's just jam-packed. Talk about removing barriers, like for housing that has a lot of people living in the houses, only 2 parking spaces. That's totally inadequate. Affordable housing, when I ask what affordable means specifically, it doesn't sound affordable to many people. I think the figure is that we've had an 11% increase in homelessness since the, well, I call it a pandemic. This sounds like Capitola is no longer going to be Capitola by the sea. It's going to be a totally different, congested Silicon Valley type structure here. I think of Ralph Nader's statement about the challenge we all face is the structural domination of the corporate state in everything with the housing. And earlier zoning codes had to do with cell tower placement, and that got overruled by Verizon, even though Mike Termini and the previous city council said we need setbacks from these cell towers. And studies show that proximity to cell towers, people experience insomnia, headaches, fatigue, foggy thinking, heart palpitations, increased cancer incidence. Something's wrong here. And CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act, there shouldn't be exemptions to that. We should be protecting our environment, especially here in Capitola by the sea, right? And everywhere we need a healthy environment. This sounds like a disaster to me. Your question on traffic is very well put. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Hi, welcome.
Good evening. Terry Thomas here on Park Avenue. Regarding density bonuses, please don't give away the farm. We are only at 1.6 square miles and need to keep the small town feel of the city. Height restrictions and parking requirements are important and can be met if we are careful about what is permitted where. My question for you to consider is this. If Proposition 33 passes, will this alter the passage of this proposal, in part or all of it?
Thank you. Any further comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, we will bring it back to the council for discussion and a vote. We'll start with discussion.
So I'd like to thank Mr. Wilkes and our planning commission for the job they've done. Their hands are tied. Some of the state laws that are coming down don't give us the opportunity to say how much parking we want to have, how much we need to do with our traffic studies, CEQA, keep taking things away from us. So I think we need to be careful when we vote, because the state is really taking the powers of our local government away. So something we need to be careful as we move forward and we do these projects. Let's be mindful of what it's doing to Capitola and not just put all these projects in just because the state says we have to. The state doesn't live in Capitola. We do.
Just a quick comment. I appreciate all the work done by the Planning Commission and our planning department, Katie Hurley. I think this is a huge step in the right direction. I think that it's very easy to overlook the housing crisis that we're currently in for lower income, middle income, and younger generations. And when you have been a homeowner in Capitola for a long time, it's easy to not see what a serious issue this is that are facing so many of our fellow community members. These are issues that are up and down the state, hence why the state is getting involved. And I think that we need to do our part to support the development of more housing to accommodate future generations, more families to live here. And, you know, nobody wants more traffic, and we should do what we can to minimize the negative impacts of development, but the situation that we're in now is frankly dire, and we have to do something. I'm glad that we are doing something. Thank you.
Where'd you go, Katie? Oh, there you are. Great. Thank you, Katie and Ben, for the presentation today. And thanks to our Planning Commission commissioners for putting all the work into this as we read like 1,000 pages of, of material for this evening. I did have a follow-up question that I forgot to ask earlier about the design review process that was tabled by Planning Commission. Is there a timeline on when that'll come back?
So we will, in the next year, when we move forward with updates, we will ask the Planning Commission if they'd like to continue moving forward with the design review edits or not. It'll depend on I think it'll be a different Planning Commission than is there today, so that will probably impact the outcome to that question. So the first step will be, are they interested in engaging changes with the design review process? And yes, if they say yes to that, then we'll start moving forward with them. Probably with the multifamily would be my.
Great. And this is the first reading, right? And we can waive the second reading. So we might not see this item again or will we see this item?
You'll see this item again. So there'll be no changes. If you pass the first reading tonight, you'll see the exact same ordinance at your next meeting.
Okay. So, thank you. So my comments are just for the community's sake of, we have two big manuals, our zoning code and then our housing element. And this is to essentially align a lot of that language to reflect those changes that we just adopted in the housing element. So I'm just reiterating that for the community. And also, secondly, in order to be strategic in our planning and our development, it's really important that we are in charge of how we want to see Capitola built and when developers come to us. And these are just the rules that we will abide by when developers come to us to build. So they still have to go through all of the same processes. They still have to go through the Planning Commission. They still have to come to council for projects. And so we're not losing any of that oversight and keeping Capitola the way we love and we hold dear to our hearts. So I'm just reiterating that for the community. These are plans. There's no cement Silicon Valley looming at this time. So I just wanted to share those comments. I'm sure our mayor has some comments, but for sake of time, I'll go ahead and since you read it already, move with staff recommendations this evening.
I can second that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'm just going to make a couple comments real quick. Thank you, Katie. Thank you to Sean and our staff and our planning commissioners. I know a lot of work has gone into this. Thank you so much for all the efforts that you've put in for our city. I think, this is, as mentioned, just part of a zoning code update and changes to allowable land use. Some of this is required by the state, and I know that it's frustrating for quite a lot of us when we hear that. And I just feel the need to remind again that when we don't comply with the state, we lose benefits. There are cities in the state that have now lost any ability to get housing and homelessness funds from the state. And so we are losing even more local control, even more opportunity when we don't comply with what the state is requiring of us. And so I think it's important for us to remember that. I do feel the need to address the question that was asked in public comment. Prop 33 would prohibit the state from limiting the ability of cities and counties to maintain, enact, or expand residential rent control ordinances. It would not impact the requirements for us to update our zoning code along with our housing element. Is that correct? Okay. Just want to make sure that I'm saying that I know what I'm talking about too. Okay. And then finally, I hear and understand the concerns about parking. And our solution when we have these concerns about parking is to promote alternatives to single passenger vehicle travel. If we want to change behaviors that cause the kind of traffic congestion that we're experiencing now, this is where we're headed, is to make it harder to own a car. But as mentioned in regard to Councilmember Clark's question and Katie's response, CEQA, and Katie, help me out with this. So CEQA requires that cities or developers, someone, impose feasible mitigation measures as part of the approval of a project. So what does that look like, if you could just help us all understand, what does that look like for something where, a complex has 36 units and 36 parking spaces and maybe there's going to be traffic impact? What does a feasible mitigation measure look like for a project?
Yes, so feasible mitigation measures that were put into that project was additional bicycle parking, having like shared parking areas for guests, and just looking at the connections there in order for like the sidewalks and other modes of transportation. So, but they, in terms of overall parking requirements, because we're in an infill city that's been mostly developed, they look at that as under CEQA, as long as they're looking at vehicle miles traveled. And so the proximity of those two developments to our retail corridor and commercial corridor and jobs also comes into that analysis, where people that live in that community can walk to jobs along 41st Avenue. So really that's part of where CEQA is headed, is to decrease vehicle miles traveled.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think those are my comments. That was my question. Thank you. And we have a motion in a second? Okay, we have a motion in a second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, that was item 9B, and so we are going back now to item 9A, the fun stuff about the public art project. That was also fun. It's all very fun.
Just a different kind of fun.
Different kind of fun.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. The item here before you is the Monterey Avenue Railing Public Art Project. Next slide, please. So we are here to hear the proposed concept and consider awarding a contract to the artist Bruce Harmon. Next slide, please. All right, so the Art and Cultural Commission has the responsibility to administer the Public Art Fund, which is a restricted fund within the city. The commission designated a project, per Peter Wilkes' urging, prior to March 2020, but ultimately it was delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The railing in question is 625 feet long with 2-inch diameter galvanized steel pipe. The art installation was very specifically detailed in the call to artist that the railing will not be altered as part of the project, but instead the project was supposed to decorate the railing and enhance what is already there. Next slide, please. So in March of 2023, a call to artist was published, and the commission received 5 submissions. A committee reviewed all of the submissions and selected 3 artists to present a concept. As part of the decision-making process, the commission decided to request samples from all 3 artists in order to install them at the site and provide viewing and solicit feedback for the proposed concepts, the various options. And in June of 2024, the commission selected the proposed concept provided by Bruce Harmon and recommends the project to City Council for approval. And so we are here with Bruce Harmon, who is now going to present his concept.
Hello, thank you. The concept, as shown in this slide and the following ones, is to take I think 1/4-inch aluminum panels that are then water jet cut to the designs that you see. And then I will hand paint them on both sides with the imagery. So the painting style is realistic. It's not cartoonish. So the fish will look quite real. The greenery would be like kelp and seaweed kind of decorations on the uprights in between the fish. But mainly fish and sea life, similar to the boxes on 41st Avenue, which I also decorated. So the idea is as you come down the hill, you would see kind of a stream of color, bright blues and some orange spots and some other colors. and just sort of be delighted by the brightness. And these paintings would be done with artist acrylics, so very durable. And then I would coat each piece with anti-graffiti, a very high hardness clear coat. So they will be well protected. I worked with Roy Johnson, and he developed a bracket that is that will grip the railing securely and has security screws that are almost impossible unless you have a special tool to affix them firmly to the railings. Care would be taken that there's no sharp corners, and any part of the design that looks like a corner would be rounded around so that nobody would get hurt on it. All the aluminum panels would be affixed to the street side, or the full face would be on the street side, and the bracket side faces where the pedestrians would walk. So, as you can see in this image here, I have some ideas for larger pieces like a humpback whale, some sea otters, and you can sort of get the flavor of my ideas. I like putting some of the bigger things down at this lower part of the railing. And then coming down the hill would be more like schools of fish and occasional spots of color. This slide shows the actual samples that I made that are installed right now at the top of the hill in case you haven't seen them. So you can get a good idea for how they look. They're nice and bright and very safe, I think, and firmly attached. So a unique decoration for that walk or that drive down the hill. Thank you.
All right, so the proposed project cost is a $50,000 contract for the artist. This would come from the Public Art Fund, which I said is a restricted fund within the city. Next slide, please. And as Bruce talked about, the location is Monterey Avenue. And I'll note for council that our postcard that went out to the community had a error in it, and it should say the west facing side of the railing, not the west side of Monterey Avenue. So if anybody, we know the railing is not on the east side of the street or on the west side of the street, it's on the east side, but the west facing, the street side. And it would go from Escalona Drive to El Camino Medio. And so the recommended action, approve the Monterey Railing public art project and authorize the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with artist Bruce Harmon in the amount of $50,000 for the project. And with that, we are available for questions.
Thank you. Questions on this end? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one question. The project looks amazing. I was just curious regarding people's use of the handrail, if the metal art pieces could be pushed forward a little bit with some sort of a spacer so that people could still get their hand in between to, children or elderly or whoever may need to use the handrail when walking down the hill.
Yes, I don't know if it showed on the pictures, but all the fish would be affixed below the top handrail. So the idea of a hand gripping the railing would be taken into account when I place the fish.
I did see that, but I'm thinking for shorter people.
So
like this, maybe the second rail. I could see people using the second rail too. How tall is the top one? Is it like 4 feet?
I think it's like 33 inches or something, like typical, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Sort of waist height.
I don't know.
I hadn't thought of
In
that.
a wheelchair or children may use that. Just...
Yeah, I think it's quite possible. Quite possible that we could work out a bracket that would.
Just want to make sure it doesn't just take away from the safety at all.
Yeah, the bracket would still. It's a stainless steel, fairly thin attachment, but it wouldn't. It would impede absolutely smooth gripping if you were just running your hand along it a little bit, because it's only about, I don't know, a 1/16 of an inch thick or something like that. So it's not much, but it would do something.
Yeah, if there's any way to push that out like an inch or two from the actual railing.
So just to be clear, the metal bracket goes around the pipe. So even if we were to create a spacer, an individual would still be placing their hand on the metal bracket because it connects around the steel pipe.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking to, you know, if you can't put your hand where the brackets are, that's one thing. But if you can't put your hand where any of the metal plates are, that's like a much more significant area of unusable railing. Does that make sense? I think it
So
would
what he's asking about is can we space out the pieces of art so that
enough
they're
to
not
somebody get their
flush against the railing?
Yes.
So you can't put your hand around it.
Yes, that could definitely be worked out.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. That's really important. The other thing I was thinking about was the color blending. There's the beautiful mural that's already existing on the apartments there. You showed a picture of it earlier with the painted mural of the ocean. And I'm wondering if the commission talked to you about kind of the palette. You talked about brightness, and actually I was thinking like maybe it shouldn't be too bright just because we want to have it blending with the aesthetics of what's already existing there. So that's really important to me. And also the look of clutter, right? So all of those are so beautiful. I don't know which one you would pick. I'm a fan of pelicans, just if you're interested in that special note. But putting too many might look a bit cluttered. And I'm just wondering what oversight the commission is going to have on ensuring that the color blending is occurring and that it's not looking too cluttered on Monterey Ave. So do we have it's more of a question on the oversight of the committee?
Yeah. So typically at this point with the award of the contract, the city would leave it to the artist to execute the concept as is proposed, as they have proposed this concept for the commission. This is definitely an excellent time for council to provide comments and things that you would like to be able to see as the concept is further developed for installation.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to be specific on not it looking too cluttered until you decide on how big and how many you're going to create. So I'd love to learn more about that or get some insight on that. And again, with the color blending with the current community aesthetics is really important to me. So huge pops of purple and orange might not match what we have that looks, it has a different feel closer to the Venetian, for instance. And then maintenance, is that included in the contract? Well, if there's graffiti on there or anything like that, or one breaks down or falls off and gets run over?
So as part of the public art code, it details that future maintenance of public art that is already installed within the city falls within the public works budget, and the commission, as part of their goal setting, would identify existing projects that they would like to see for maintenance purposes. And so this year, Bruce has actually been repainting the 41st Avenue signal boxes as part of that maintenance plan. And so this would also, this same practice would go towards the future of these fish as well.
So would it be too far-fetched to ask that you make all of these, but possibly not put them all up, and then we could decide, what looks too full? I mean, I'm trying to look at the picture, so it was the first time not the first time I saw it, but for the audience sake too, if you want to pull up the example that was brought up, there were so many of the whale and the pelicans. Yeah, with the whale and.
Clarifying to do with your question.
Sure, please.
I just wanted to ask, are the photos
that's a
that
good one.
are in the presentation that were being shown the exact proposal, or is it more of like a general?
This is a concept, yeah.
Okay.
So this is an opportunity for council to provide any comments for the artists in the process of the recommended action, and he can take feedback and
then come back to us with more of after it's conceptualized, after our feedback. So if you as an artist is hearing that, I'd like for it to blend more with the background and see what the spacing would look like. Could you come back and present to us a more real life concept?
Yeah, in fact, I created these proposal images to get some of that feedback right away. For instance, this slide shows clouds and flying pelicans and seagulls and some standing ones. That's purely conceptual at this point. Like if it was agreed that maybe just sea life and underwater life was what we wanted, we could do that. But this idea came to me that the upper part would be, clouds, kites, birds flying, and then transition to the underwater world. But that's very much up for.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Can we see the other slide one more time before I end my questions? Okay, so I see your vision. Yeah, I think I can get to my comments later, but that helps with my questions, and we'll get to comments.
This slide right here shows that in terms of your idea about color, it would be mainly blue and silvery fish in schooling kind of groupings, providing a consistency as it goes down the railing, and then pops of color, like the orange are Garibaldi fish, which is the state fish. Salmon is that one there at the top. And so I created this to give you an idea of the density that I'm thinking of. If it was agreed that that's too much, I'd be happy to create new imagery like this that would give you a very accurate idea. These railings, the uprights, are 8 feet apart, so there's a kind of guide there as far as how much I'd be putting on. Part of the idea, for instance, with the kelp and the seaweed, is that it would be attached on the uprights so that it sort of hides the uprights a little bit. But the greenery of the sea kelp and everything would blend obviously nicely with everything that's on the wall. And so the color of blue would be the predominant one, blue and silvery gray. So that's pretty low key. It's not, really like
Yeah.
too much.
I know that our plants aren't always purple year round. So, and what would also be nice to come back with, at least for me, for information, is how big each one is. It's looking like about a foot long. So in terms of sizes, it would be helpful too. Like if all the silverfish were going to be 12 inches long, then it would help us decide on it, how far to space them and stuff, just so it could look aesthetically pleasing as folks are driving through.
Yeah, and photographs like this that show the view as you're actually going down in perspective are helpful. I could also provide block by block photographs that would show very precise spacing and sizes. That I'm not sure how that would work with the council. Like, would these images be presented to the council to get more feedback before I start, or what?
I think that's what we're trying to figure out, because we're just at questions now, but I know the rest of council has probably some thoughts and questions.
Bruce, I know we talked about the sharp objects, and none of them were going to be over the railing. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Wherever we could, we put them closest to the stanchions, which would also help that.
Mhm.
As far as the coloring and everything goes, we talked about it quite a bit at our meetings, and I think we came up with a pretty good theme. The boxes that you've put out throughout the city, they're all pretty conforming to what Capitola is and what it stands for. So I don't think we'd have too big an issue with all the coloring. I think it was something if we got back and took it back to the Art and Cultural Commission and share with council, we could probably get to what we want with the coloring and the overall plan. Just my thoughts. And a question I threw in there. How do you two think?
Yeah, and I did notice the photographs I worked with there are, I think, from springtime, so there's a lot of pretty flowers that are coming out of the wall, but it's not like that, for most of the year. It's kind of fairly barren. So for most of the year, I think the color of the fish would be sort of a welcome little, bright visual for people to enjoy.
I just had a clarifying question. I think just so that the public is aware, these funds are restricted to this type of work within the city, that they can't be used for any maintenance outside of these projects, correct?
You're correct. Yes, the Public Art Fund is a restricted fund.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that was my question. Okay. Any other questions before we take this to public comment? Okay, we're going to take it to public comment, and then we'll come back for council comments, and we might have additional thoughts or questions for you at that point. But first, we'll go to public comment. So if any member of the public would like to address the council on this item, now is the time. Hello.
Again, my name is mentioned. So yes, this was originally my concept, but my concept wasn't this concept. My concept was I walk up and down Capitola Road and Monterey Road all the time since I was a kid, and it was always the same galvanized pipe. And when they finally came up with, in front of Tressel's restaurant, that beautiful artwork that they've done, which is railing, and I believe the Art and Cultural Commission commissioned that. I said, well, why can't we just do something to the railing? This old galvanized pipe that's, as pointed out in the letters, is bent and broken. And so the thought was, well, let's just go into a catalog and find something a little bit better. And as pointed out, you can't do that because this is very restricted fund. This is an artist's fund. It's set aside specifically to fund artists, i.e. painters and sculptors, and to fund their original work. So you can't even use their catalog work. So the notion of, so we looked into this. I said, well, what would it take for original, replacing the railing, all 600 feet? And the numbers came up a little, $500,000 or more, which even though this fund has a lot of money, it doesn't have that much money. So, so then we went on to, decorating the railing or, seeing what could we do to improve it. To your point, we can always kick this back to the Art and Cultural Commission and try to incorporate the comments because, as the artist pointed out, it was Roy Johnson who designed the brackets, and he could maybe redesign those brackets. But I do want to say that I've been on a lot of commissions and committees throughout my 10 years here, met with a lot of you and a lot of different community members, and specifically Roy Johnson, Mary Beth Callahan, and Lori Hill are the most dedicated, hardworking, creative people, coworkers I've ever dealt with. So I just want to shout out to them in particular, and the Art and Cultural Commission in general. They're really good people. It's up to you as to whether or not you like this.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
My name is Molly Ording, and my husband Mickey and I live right up above the project, right here. I must say, I think all of you have huge shoes to fill with that mural on Park Avenue, which is absolutely spectacular. And I hope we could use that same standard for Monterey Avenue. What I've seen of this is not up to that standard. This to me looks like a series of tropical fish that are swimming down Monterey Avenue into the bay. Another example of a beautiful high standard of art, in my opinion, is the overpass that they built by Chanticleer Avenue, which is just outstanding. And I wish, I know everybody has their own perspectives about art, but I wish that there'd been more feedback from the residents who live right near there for us haven't had an opportunity to offer our opinions about this. I've just had one thought, as opposed to the tropical fish theme. We have these beautiful pelicans, these beautiful flocks of pelicans that fly over in V's and they swim in our cove, and just something like that, something simple and beautiful that makes a statement about the simple beauty of Capitola and the nature that we all live within. So that would be my comment. And I hope maybe there will be opportunities for more public comment about this, because I think it's a beautiful space, and let's hope we can make the most of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Hello, Karen Hanna. Yeah, Monterey Avenue Wall is a big passion project for me. I think what made this project acceptable in my mind is the quality of Bruce's paintings that are so realistic and correct. So it's not cartoonish. And I think that's where the whole thing about color, well, it's the color that the fish are. So you're not going to make a whale purple or a Garibaldi black. I mean, that I think is really something when we talk about whether it's, fits in with whatever. The fact that it's the realism is the real key to making this successful. And I just think his work is really amazing. So whether or not it's appropriate for the wall or whatever, that's up to you. But I think that the quality of the work and his vision is spot on if you like, the concept. So it won me over. And I was not happy about some of the other choices, believe me. So, yeah. Anyway, I love his work, and I hope that we're able to come to some understanding and project here. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
I'm Roy Johnson. I'm the chair of the Arts Commission. And thank you, Bruce, for showing that. I like this project a lot. The process for picking it, this project pretty much ticks off all of the boxes that we were looking for in a project. My initial thing was I want to stand at the bottom of the hill and look up and you can look at most of the railing and see it as one art piece, not segmented different things, but a continuous thing. And the same with at the bottom. You look down, you see one thing. And it does that in a really nice way. What I found that none of the artists that we presented had a clue as to how to attach their artwork to the railing. So it turned out it was kind of tricky. And it needed to be safe, secure, and kids running their hands along the railing. It had to be good for that. So I took it upon myself to design a bracket, several incarnations, and Bruce and I went out and attached the ones that are up there now. The fish there is space for hands. They're at least an inch off the railing now. And most of them are going to be attached at the post. So the kid's going to have to move their hand anyway. And as I look walking down there, and particularly one going up the hill by the trestle, if you look at the wear on all of to see like who's touching what, no one touches the bottom rail, no one touches the second rail, hardly anybody touches any rail except the top. Just as if you're trying to analyze like what is going to happen. So I think that positioning them would be an easy thing. To move forward, the issue that you always have when picking an art is you're looking at pictures and then reality. Pictures, reality. And what what you're all looking now is at pictures. What you have to be able to do is visualize reality. So what I would like to see is award the contract. It's a big project. He's not going to come dropping in with 200 fish and just put them up. What he's going to do is start putting them up. And that would be the time when people in the community can have input. Too many, move that one over there, too bright, not bright enough. I really like the pop of bright color. To me, when I go up that wall, it's, I know Hannah loves that wall, but it's kind of old brick, and those aren't like calla lilies, they're like weeds, or they look like weeds. So it's not like they're imposing anything on that. So anyway, I recommend that you approve it. I think that Bruce would do an excellent job. The standout for him, he's an artist. And if you really look closely, they put a smile on your face. It's just delightful. And they are painted on the other side. So people walking, it has to look good on both sides, has to be functional on both sides. And I think he's achieved that. So I would totally recommend that you approve it, and then we can make the adjustments as we go.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll come back to the council for discussion. We'll start at this end.
We spoke at length too about the type of birds, fish, and everything we put in there, and these are all indigenous sea life and wildlife. That was something that was thought out. Just wanted to add that. I think it'd be a great project.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited about this. I do personally like the way that it looks. I think that you've really sort of created a story starting at the corner of Monterey and Escalona, just with the clouds and the birds. Definitely the flying pelicans all the way for those. Those are definitely a representation of Capitola, and I think you nailed that. I do also appreciate the pops of color here and there, maybe, a couple orange fish. I don't feel like it really contrasts too much with the apartments. There is lots of blue in that one, and it seems that all the fish and wildlife below it are blue in picture number 9, if that's what I'm referring to. And I think you guys have thought of everything down to like literally the nuts and bolts, and putting a protective barrier for graffiti. I think that's very wise. But I have to say, Karin, you have your work cut out for you now to really maintain that area. But I think this is going to be a great enhancement. And I think what it sounds like, and I don't know if I'm speaking for everybody, but maybe there is some incremental parts to installing the work and making sure we're working within a scope that that the residents are comfortable with, along with the council and the Arts Commission. Thank you to you guys for bringing this to us and using a local artist who's also doing work up on the 41st corridor. So really spreading the joy throughout this this city. It's great to feel like we have a connection across the couple miles that we are. So thank you.
Comments?
Yeah, I really like this project. Just about as is, subtle differences in the number of art pieces or the placement of them. I would leave that to anyone else who's interested in that. I think generally it's a great idea and would tend to defer to the artist. I do like the color. I think part of sort of Capitola's atmosphere is bright colors. The only thing, and I love the kind of concept, like higher up, it's birds and clouds, and then goes down to fish. I'm not sure if there's any iconic sort of land animals that might go in between, but that's just my 2 cents. I'm happy no matter what. I'm sure I'll like it. Thank you.
Mr. Hartman, thank you so much. Clearly, your art is exceptional. I am on the other side of what my fellow colleagues are sharing today. I'm more of a simple kind of decorator. So I understand the challenges of the commission when trying to pull together a cohesive concept to present to council this evening. I ideally, if I could just throw it out, would love to see us begin with the pelicans. I think simple, and just beginning with that and seeing what that looks like. So we can see the size of it and what it looks like, and then building from there, especially if you're making these in bulk. I know you're an artist, there's nothing in bulk that you do, but then we can have things that if they do get ruined and whatever, we have some backup items. I'd love to have that as an option, but I'd like to see the birds come out. I'm not a fan of the clouds or the kites, but I really just would love to see simple and then grow into something more. And it's not just because I favor just pelicans. I love all sea animals. So I don't know if that I'd like to see a design concept come back, but I'll let my colleagues make their motion here. Ideally, I'd love to see something of a more, a conceptual design that's more realistic to what we're going to see. As Roy, you mentioned, we can go as we may, but I just don't know that I'm personally there yet with how it's presented today. So, but I'll let the rest of council deliberate on this one.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I like the fish and the birds. I'm also not a fan of the clouds and the kites personally, but I really like the birds and I really like the fish. I had some questions. So a clarification. The slides mentioned that this is from Escalona to El Camino Medio, but the pictures of that last stretch in front of that apartment building that has the mural, that's after El Camino Medio. So is this going to go all the way down, or is it going to stop at El Camino Medio and then that last stretch doesn't have anything on it?
I pulled the language from the call to artists. So it's possible that over the time we had discussed, it had evolved to include that portion of it. We can verify, but it is the intent. And Roy, knowing the majority of the history, could maybe correct me there, but the intent was that section, and we can discuss if we wanted to stop there or continue to have the continuity that maybe came out through the organic conversation of meeting with the artists and reviewing the concept. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, personally, I think if it's going to go that far down, it should go all the way. That's just some final stretch at the end. I think it'd be odd for it to end and then there still be railing that doesn't have that on it. So that's just my personal opinion there. But the art is beautiful, and I look forward to seeing it. I had some questions about the restricted revenues. That's already been answered, that this funding can't be used for other things. I know there was concern about safety. I understand that there's going to be rounded corners on these as much as possible, so people won't be cutting themselves on them or anything like that. And then I think generally, and this is more of just a comment about public art in our city generally, I am loving the amount of public art we're seeing. We've got the mural on Park Avenue. We've got the begonia thing that we just figured out that's going to be at the other side of the village. We've got this that's going to be on the railing. And I'm not seeing any public art projects planned for the other side of Capitola Village. And I feel like those neighborhoods and 41st Avenue and the shopping centers where we're about to get a new grocery store and a new gym and all of these kind of areas of Capitola are also deserving of some really awesome public art, especially since a lot of people come into our city from that direction, from Capitola Avenue or from SoCal to 41st or Portola to 41st. And so I just do want to encourage the Art and Cultural Commission to look at 41st Avenue and the surrounding areas. I know the utility boxes are being painted and those are beautiful, but standalone art projects like we're seeing here in the village, we are seeing quite a lot of them, and I don't see that continued to the rest of our city. And so I would encourage the commission to look at opportunities there so that we can continue beautifying our entire city. Otherwise, yeah, I think those are my only comments. Any other comments? Questions?
I'll just second the no kite. That's not a favorite for me either. And I do agree that I think it should stretch the full length of the fence if we're going to do it all the way.
And I could add a comment.
I like the idea that Roy suggested of starting at the top, and I could do a section. And to your idea, I like the idea of just doing maybe like undulating lines of pelicans flying, and maybe a few standing, and just stay with that theme in that area. I like the idea of just forgetting the clouds and the kites. Just go with birds and maybe a few seagulls in there to give a little variation.
Yeah.
And then you could live with it and take a look and see how it feels, and because these things can be moved after they've been installed. So we could easily make adjustments if agreement is for that.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon, and for that. And I'm looking at my colleagues. If you agree with that first phase of it, I would be happy to make the motion then, if that's what I'm hearing as a first phase, so that we could see what the art looks like and how it feels, and if there needs to be more eventually added, or what the additions would look like. Are you, please?
I wonder, I don't have any issue with that, but I wonder if rather than coming back to council, it could come back to the Arts Commission. Yeah, just continue to interact, maybe have another session, maybe invite the neighbors to talk about how it's going. Yeah, I would be happy to support that.
So in that case, just for clarification, we're approving a full contract for $50,000 for the entire project. So I just want to make sure that we're not saying, let's do this first part, and if we don't like it, we won't move forward, because we are approving a contract for the whole thing. So it'll just be just this first part, and then after that first part, it'll go back to the Arts Commission.
Recommendations, yeah.
For recommendation, yeah. And then
Move forward.
Yeah.
To just clarify, not for recommendation to council, but maybe further feedback for the artist? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard from the community that a little bit more input. So as we see this grow and evolve, and we're all clearly excited about having something there and what Roy's created. I mean, there's technology being created right before our eyes in Capitola. It's pretty cool. So I think that having the community's ability to provide their, and more than likely saying it's going to be beautiful, right? Because it's going to be beautiful pelicans. But I also think that there needs to be an opportunity to say, okay, enough's enough. No more fish, or that's too many whales, or, but I don't know what that's going to look like. So if it does go to art and cultural, I think afterwards, you can come back with an update to council rather than, an update's always nice for us to hear what they've said. A short update, Councilmember Peterson. Are we good with that? I'm looking at my colleagues before I make a
All
motion.
good with that? Okay.
Okay with that.
Okay, so I'm happy to approve the Monterey Avenue Railing Public Project and authorize the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Mr. Harmon in the amount of $50,000 of restricted art funds for this project.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. It just occurred to me, Mr. Harmon, if I'm not mistaken, you did the mural on the building on Stockton with the palm trees and the sun and the waves on the building. Was that you?
Stockton.
It's an apartment building. It's behind Quality Market.
Oh, I'm trying to think of.
Well, it's not important. But point is, I live right next to it, and I pass it all the time, and it just clicked to me that I thought I saw Harmon as the signature on that building. So regardless, excited to have more of your art in the city. Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries unanimously. And with that, we aren't done yet. We're going to item 9C, Coastal Flooding Resource Guide. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight, I'm going to provide a presentation on the upcoming overview and the preparations and response strategies of potential coastal flooding during this upcoming year. Next slide. So as a little bit of background, as we're approaching the fall winter season this year, the last 3 years have been actually very very impactful, specifically to Capitola and in our region. As I think Governor Newsom said, we're having this whiplash effect with weather stuff, and so it's definitely something that's impacting us here locally because we have that giant body of water out there called the Pacific Ocean. And so as we get excited again for the winter season, it puts the city in a little bit of a situation as we prepare for these events. So we're approaching our winter season, so the storms come out of the Alaska and they come down. Our season begins now in October and extends through March. And part of that is that we start getting the winter weather watches, high surf advisory, coastal flooding, and the creek level. So we're constantly monitoring those things. It's important to note that we're not the only ones that are at seat at the table. So there's key partners, one being the sheriff's office because they're our key law enforcement partner. Central Fire is a very, very important piece of this metric because we work with them on making decisions on evacuating and when we're going to restrict certain areas. And then they also provide us with a rescue. And then we have direct contact with NOAA. So Brian Garcia is embedded into the OR3, which is the Office of Response, Recovery, and Resilience, which is a newer program that's the county. So we're all partners there, and we actually have a city representative that's a part of the OR3 with that. So we're all activated. We're getting ready for the winter season as it approaches. Next slide. So as the weather event approaches, we're constantly looking at basically the variables as the storm front approaches. So as the season begins, we're starting in October, we're going to kind of gear up as we get closer towards like November, December, January, and that's when essentially the storms start from Alaska and they're going to slowly intensify as they move down and through the season. And so as we look at those, the things the known facts that we do know are the tides. So that's something obvious. It's with the moon, it's with the gravity, and so what happens is during the full moon or new moon, we have really high tide swings, so they're called king tides. We know that the king tides this year are going to be between November 15th and the 17th, and then December 13th and the 15th. We also have another kind of extreme tide that's in January. But those are just key indicators. If we had king tides and a really strong storm, that could be a problem. So we look at these variables. Luckily, I would say that Mother Nature's we've kind of missed all the elements coming together. So that's something to be thinking about as we kind of look at this stuff. Storm surge has to do with, as we get these large swells, that also creates wind waves on top of that. But what happens with the storm surge, much like back in Florida right now, sometimes the water levels can rise up depending on the level of the swell and the intensity of the swell, which then gives more water, which could potentially have flooding problems. The next variable we look at is the swell or the surf. That's the actual waves that are breaking. Waves are created from really long, strong winds that come out of Alaska. The longer and the heavier the winds, we read it by a period or seconds. The higher level of period of interval of the swell is the stronger the storm. So that's something we look at. So when you look at the metrics that I've provided, anything that's under like 13 or 14 second intervals, we're not really concerned about because it's more of the energy that's behind those storms. When we start getting into 16, 17, one of the storms we were, I think, 19 second intervals, that's when it stops. Essentially, it's like the energy that's behind those things. So it's really, when you jump just those periods of seconds, it's a stronger force to it. So there's just a lot more energy behind it. So I'll provide some examples a little bit later. And then the fourth metric that we look at is the so-called creek flow. And so we look at all these different things depending on how much rain that we have. Right now, I believe it's shoaled over right now. And so the creek or lagoon is shoaled over right now with the sand. At some point, that'll break free. And as we start getting rain, the water will flow. We have active monitors that actually does the cubic feet per second. So that's what we're monitoring. Right now, it's trickling at like 15 or 20 feet per second. When we start getting rain, and it breaks free, then we start getting the cubic feet per second. So what happens is when it reaches a certain level, we start getting alarms just internally through the administration. I know Matt Matt Capitola gets them, I get them, the city manager, public works director. And then we start monitoring, and we'll actually have eyes that go down and sit and watch the creek and just monitor it depending on the different variables that we're looking at. Next slide. So what we do is we're looking at all these things. So whenever we get a weather event, immediately OR3, Dave Reed over there activates. We get put on kind of standby calls, and the NOAA folks will start evaluating the weather, and then we'll start having like pre-storm preparations. And so as we look at the storm, we'll sit down as a county and look at what the potential impacts. Usually there's PG&E that's involved, Caltrans, all the different county agencies. The city of Capitola is there. All the other county agencies are represented. So we're looking at what's the nature of the event. Is it going to be a heavy rain event, large waves, tsunami, coastal flooding? They all come with different levels of response. A lot of them are similar because we're dealing with large amounts of water, but tsunamis are going to have a different effect. Obviously, we're going to be affected. Santa Cruz is going to be affected, but like Scotts Valley wouldn't be. But if it's a very heavy rain event with large wind, then Scotts Valley would be impacted, but with just different things. We're going to deal primarily, our issues are more with the coastal flooding. So if we do have an actual active event, the city will assign a county representative to monitor the weather forecast. Public Works is notified, and then they've already started, but they'll start in the early season, start clearing the storm drains. We make sure that the infrastructures, like the sewer pump or the sump pumps and all the passages are clear for the rain events or the swell events. And then we also pre-position, like we'll put sand in the upper lot, sandbags, and then signage at City Hall and the police department. When we get a weather event, we'll start with the notifications. And I know that I came to council and talked about the importance of our Cruz Aware, which is our county-wide noticing. So I would encourage anyone in the county to sign up with that, and they'll give you real-time updates. And then we also try and push out that information on our social media, so our Facebook, Instagram, Nextdoor, and Nixle. Part of that notification, I think it's important to comment, is that we want to make sure that it's consistent with our county partners, because we deal directly with the county, and so what happens in Soquel. So last time Soquel flooded, but we didn't flood. So we just have to make sure that our information is consistent with the county, and we're pushing out the same information. We're not just a consistent message to the community. That would seem to be something we learned from. It's just making sure it's consistent. Okay, next slide. A big part of that too is that the police department has someone embedded with our business community, the Capitola BIA, and so we would begin those noticing of the BIA, because if it's a flooding concern, that's going to be the Lower Village, Riverview is going to be our biggest areas of concern. So we would notify the local BIA and then the Venetian HOA, just give them some guidance on securing their goods, using sandbags and early closures. This would be a good example of us kind of letting them know to start preparing for this stuff. And then encouraging community-wide signups for the Cruz Aware so we can get those real-time alerts out there. Next slide. So during an event, so it depends on what the event is. If it's just a localized event, we would stand up our local EOC, which would be here at City Hall. The city manager would be our incident commander, and then each different department would take a certain role. So we'd assign a public information officer, logistics, operations, all those different assignments. But again, that's a localized thing. If it goes beyond that, so if we have a major winter weather event that's going to happen, we're going to still have our local EOC, but then we're also going to have someone that's embedded into the county EOC, because then that gives us those resources, and then we can give that real-time information. And if we need help, they can step in, or we can be a resource to the county as well. So it's a two-way street there. Again, we usually have, especially with the creek, we'll have eyes on the creek and eyes literally on the beach. So real-time monitoring of the conditions with the surf cams now is kind of nice. You can actually pull up a lot of those cams. And we're always looking at the swell heights, storm surges, creek flow rate, and the creek flow rates, because if there's anything that balls up on the creek, like a debris or something like that, that can really start building up that water. What will happen is the it'll start to flood back of Riverview and then backfills basically the village. And then the pumps can't keep up with it. Once the village floods, it's really hard to get the village out of that it's like the bathtub down there. Obviously, the deployment of sandbags and flood barriers in high-risk areas. I will note that we are in a flood zone, so we actually have to do our own preparations here and put our own sandbags in the back and move all of our cars up to high water and all those different things. So that's all going on as well. And then, again, consistent messaging for the community of what's going on, what areas to stay out of if we're going to make those closures and stuff. Next slide. Again, communication, public safety and communication. So managing public access. So that's, when we have the large wave events, sometimes that brings people down to the beach. We want to try and keep people informed, but keep them away from those areas, especially if it's like down in the Esplanade where if there's, high waves in those different areas, it can be a really, really dangerous situation. We want to continuous updates to the emergency alerts, social media, and coordination with our regional partners. Typically, they'll have like someone that's going to push out that information. We just kind of echo it back out. We want to ensure public safety. So our primary responsibility is our people first, and then property second. So that's people are our first priority. Property is going to be second. Next slide. So it's winter storms are very dynamic. It's a lot of work that's happening, a lot of phone calls. We're constantly looking at it, and I will say Mother Nature's been. I know we've gotten hit a few times, but I will say Mother Nature's been pretty good as far as not hitting us with all her might, if you will. We've just kind of dodged those. When the main storm will hit, it's like the tide will be dropping, and so it's just like it's really really worked out. And just some examples of like some of the data that we were getting. So during that, so we had a couple different reports. So the January 5th report, we were seeing seas of 10 meters, which would be 30 feet at 17 seconds. And then the day that hit us even harder, which was that December 28th, and that was 29 feet, but it was 19 seconds. So you see the waves were higher, but just that period second just had just so much more energy. And then what no one likes to hear is that, and as just a surfer, I can attest to this, with any storm, there's always going to be rogue waves. And so I think that's what we kind of got hit with a couple of those times is we're going to have just an anomaly wave that's going to come through and it's just going to do damage. And so how do we get through that and then, get the village pumped out, dried out, keep people back, and then weather the storm, if you will. So with that, I am open for any questions. Like I said, we've already been meeting with our representatives, OR3. They're active. They were active during the power safety shutoff, so they're pretty active throughout the year. They're really gearing up for the winter time. It's really their kind of big season. I'm open for any questions. Hopefully you have a nice, dry, wet winter, but a safe winter.
Thank you. Questions?
Spoken like a true waterman. Good information. Question I have is, do we have things planned with our new great promotions that we have as some training going on for sergeants, captains?
Oh, as far as training?
Yeah, for our city in particular.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to put together a tabletop, and we'll kind of. So we've been doing a thing with the fire department. We've been doing it with like our critical incidents. We'll kind of break out, and do like a tabletop exercise. So the plan is that we'll do that with the city, so we can kind of dust off the gear and kind of put our hats back on and make sure that we understand our roles, because it's really important that when these things do happen, that whatever role that you're assigned, that you stay kind of in that lane and then you report appropriately. And so there will be some upcoming training.
Because it's not if, it's when it's going to come. Secondly, for staff, last couple events we had, I think the city council felt a little left out. I was hoping that somebody could be designated from city council to be a part of the team for the EOC so that they can get all the information and then pass it out to the council members, or especially the training. Maybe we can all attend the training so we can all get a better understanding.
Yeah, I think if we could all attend the training, and then whoever's the mayor at any given year when there's a disaster, I think would be a good
I think that was probably one of the lesson learned for sure was just having that single point of contact for the information. And so we identify that person early on, and then that person is the person to contact. So updates, we just, say it's like Chloe, that's our PIO, and then we just know, and then just set that expectation. You're going to get updates, every whatever it is.
And more eyes on is always better to.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just have one convoluted question. I'm just wondering if there are any hardware or sort of technical solutions to these emergency situations that we're lacking or that we could invest in. I know I saw through some of the footage of the Florida hurricane, water bags surrounding whole houses, keeping them fine, or there's different types of L-shaped flood barriers that I'm not sure which ones we're using now, or cameras looking at SoCal Bridge or something, is there any technological gaps that require funding that we could invest in now? Because Councilmember Clark said, I think it is a matter of when, not if, severe flooding happens. And I just want to make sure that I think it would always be more economical to spend money on the front side rather than the back end with these kind of things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anything to help us monitor this stuff, I think would be beneficial. Maybe Jamie can speak to. So we do have the monitors on the SoCal Creek, so that it'll do flow rate, it'll do the height or the.
So that will kind of tell us if there's debris
Right.
building up, because it'll get
Yeah, that's actually a couple years old. I remember back when Steve Jesberg was Public Works Director, we didn't have those. And there was many a night when he and I were texting each other and we're like, all we could see is the flow rate, but we didn't know how high the water was. And, how high the water is really the whole game. So we have installed, Public Works does take care of actually a gauge on there. Trying to think of some other piece of technology that would be, the real technology, honestly, is the seawall and the bridge. That's infrastructure, not technology.
Yeah, right.
Those are
Kinda what I was
the two components that really protect our town. But that's not what you're really talking about. You're talking about something relatively easy and affordable to monitor.
Infrastructure too. I wouldn't ask Andy about
Yeah.
that, but maybe we could bring that back and have a further discussion about what serious investments in infrastructure should we make or think about making.
Yeah, that's something we've been thinking about, and we may have an item coming up here.
Okay, good. Great. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Daly, for the presentation. This was something that I had asked for you to come back with, and I love this proactive approach of just getting us to all start thinking about this again, because it's inevitable, right? I appreciate that there's a table talk conversation taking place, and the question you heard is, how can we participate? How can we be part of this process and really understand what steps are, the OCR? O3? Oh, are they? Okay, whatever. It's late. But, what everyone's doing. And I think that's really something we missed the last couple of years of we know there's practices, we know there's procedures, but what does that mean for Capitola? And the biggest piece that was missed, I think we all experienced, was our businesses not knowing what the processes were. So my question, and maybe it's more of something to think about and for the whole department to think about, is will there be any outreach to our businesses and what the plan for that looks like? We can present it to the BIA, but not all businesses are owned or are part of the BIA. So are we going to do individual outreach of, here's what the plan is, this is who you call, this is, where you will always get sandbags, all being super proactive rather than sending that sandbag notice out the day of when we know the waves are, getting big, getting gnarly, right? So was that nerd? That was kind of nerdy, huh? Yeah. So that's my question about the outreach. What could that look like for the businesses in the village? And then the storm drain. what's going on with that storm drain that has always backed up, and really what's the plan for that? Because I remember, I think it was Captain Ryan at that time when I'm like, it's impacted, and we didn't have our crew out there because we were dealing with another drain that was backed up, and it was something about the pump and all of the things. So what's the update on the storm drain in the village backing up and being an issue? Because it
Jessica,
gets backed
maybe-
up with sand and yeah.
Could speak to it. I just know that what typically happens is that we have sump pumps, and then when the water obviously floods, if we lose power, then we lose power. And so the backup generator, I think, failed or something like that, and so so the backup failed, and so the pumps couldn't work, and so it was a matter of getting the power back to them so that they can turn on and start working.
So maybe to Councilmember Peterson's point of technological gaps, are there things that we should be really planning for or purchasing? I know we have a generator, but then the power was out. Is there something else we could possibly be doing, again, to be proactive? Because we know those, we always have the drain issue, the pump issues. It always happens. So I'd love some information.
So similarly, that's more of an infrastructure question, but as far as being proactive in that way, we do have a local hazard mitigation plan that's updated every, I want to say, 5 years. This current round, the county came together and got a grant to do a local hazard mitigation plan that is a regional mitigation plan. So we look regionally at what kind of infrastructure improvements can be made to be proactive and rebuild bridges and roads and put up seawalls and replace pumps. And that particular pump, the transformer for it, is also in the low-lying village, so it does flood out a lot, and we do have to connect a generator to it, and moving that infrastructure somewhere else where that doesn't happen. So that's not quite a technological improvement, but all of those infrastructure improvements are something that have been considered and keep being reconsidered on a rolling basis.
So then my second part of the question would be then, what are we planning to do when it goes out, and how can we be more ready for it? Do we need to be shovel ready? Do we need to put more sandbags? Do we need to buy those blowy uppy things around it? I don't know, but I'm just wondering, we know it's an ongoing issue. We know it's going to happen. It's inevitable. What can we do besides the infrastructure piece? And so that's, again, just like a high level question of planning and really thinking about this, because we know it impacts the village every year. So those are my questions. Thank you.
And I could answer the BIA question. The messaging, is that specifically for like village, or you want messaging for the? So primarily we message stronger to the village just because they're like the impacted area, and I can only speak for this last winter storms. And I know we specifically reached out to the BIA, and I don't think that message was then delivered to the rest of their group, which was unfortunate. And we circled back with them, and again, we've had that follow-up conversation. So we just didn't need to make sure that it's kind of like the prayer chain or whatever. You got to make sure you pass on that message. And so that was addressed. Again, since then, we've embedded someone from the police department in the BIA meetings. So they're there every week. And then I would put out there to the public and just to your constituents, please start preparing now. The sand's there. We have the sandbags. Start looking at it. It could be a dry winter, right? But it could be a really wet winter. So start preparing now. This is the time. Please sign up for Cruz Aware. We will be reaching out. We will reach out to the BIA if we want to go beyond that. I think we can work at that, but that's just a bigger message.
Yeah, what I meant was beyond the BIA is because not all business owners are part of the BIA. They don't all pay the dues to be on the BIA. There's some that don't participate. And so it'd be nice to just make sure that everybody who might not be participating in the BIA get it, who might not be a member. And I'm wondering, you guys have been killing it on social media, if there's just like a fact sheet of Cruz Aware, sandbags, storms are coming, these are your points of contacts, this is how you access information, and we start just pumping information out of being ready. I mean, fire season, we're seeing it with the county. I'm getting tons of posts about being ready for fires, have your go bags. So this just might be an opportunity for us to just, be proactive. I just don't want to be on the end of this again saying we didn't do as much as we could.
Okay, I don't have any additional comments. Thank you for providing that information. I do think it's important that we're as prepared as we can possibly be, being in a flood zone and experiencing, I think we're bound to experience increasingly worse storms in the coming years. So thank you for taking the time to be prepared. Okay, any public comment on this item? No? Okay. All right, with that, we will bring it back to council. I think this is just receiving a report with have no action. So with that, I
just had a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Didn't do during questions, but thank you for working on this, and thank you to our PD who, really had my back in the 2023 storms, and I felt really comfortable. And I know it's not an easy position for you to try to wrangle a community, or not necessarily people from the community, but people looky-loos or whatever you want to call them. And that I just want to put the word out there to, if you're going to visit here or if you are part of this community, please listen to the professionals. They are, like you stated, they're here to protect our bodies first and property later. That's for a reason. Doesn't mean that you should run back into your house or run back to your car or something crazy because you left your cell phone. There's just these steps that if other people are going to put their priorities to you, then you should take the same for yourself and for their position. And so I think the preparedness is really important. I think getting those Instagram posts out earlier rather than later would be helpful. And maybe even as the community officers are walking their beat, if they want to stick their heads into the art gallery and just say, hey, just a reminder, this is where the sandbags are. This is all free, provided to you. If they're comfortable doing that, I wouldn't put that task on anybody just to do it. But just working with the community, I think, has been important, and glad to see that we're collaborating with other agencies, and whatever else we can be a part of, I think would be helpful, just so that I think, not that anybody felt left out, but just so we have a united front and that people feel that we have the information as it comes. I know things can be really hectic during those times, and it's not the first thing to text or call one of us. So if there is that chain of command, however we want to put that in place for our city family, I think that's important. So thank you.
All right. With that, we are going to adjourn into our next regularly scheduled council meeting on November 7th at 6 p.m. Thanks so much. Our next specially scheduled meeting on November 7th.